Welcome and thanks for joining us. It's another episode, part of our Nonprofit Power Week, thanks to Fundraising Academy, cause selling education. So Jack is back with us on a Wednesday or a hump day. Some people might still refer to it as that. We are so thrilled because Jack Alotto is a CFRE and a trainer with Fundraising Academy. So today, as we continue this Nonprofit Power Week, we are talking about mastering nonprofit major gifts. So all week we're dedicated to this topic. Even our Friday Ask and Answered, yes, I said Friday, for our Fundraising Academy dedicated episode. So again, thank you so much to this dedication and to all of our presenting sponsors that keep this organization afloat, as well as hopefully many of your organizations as you move the needle toward success in the new year. So thank you to all of our presenting sponsors for your partnership and your belief and commitment to the nonprofit sector at large. We are so grateful to have your investment in the sector. Julia Patrick, you're pretty invested in the sector too, my friend, and you just shared in the Green Room Chatter about your volunteer philanthropic efforts and how you have really been tapped on the shoulder throughout your volunteer time to serve as an asker. I'm going to call you an asker. I love that. So it takes a special person. Julia is the CEO of the American Nonprofit Academy. I get to have fun each and every day and serve alongside Julia as her nonprofit nerd and your nonprofit nerd, CEO of the Raven Group. And again, today we have Jack Alotto with us to talk about major gifts. And today, Jack, I think we're diving into the actual solicitation. Am I right?
Yes, which is that third phase of that traditional major gift cycle. So this is the exciting part. You've done all your work and now you're coming to that solicitation phase. In cause selling, we actually break this phase down into three different sections. We talk about presentation, we talk about handling objectives, and then handling objections, and then we talk about actually making that ask.
Okay, so before we move into this, which is a big deal, can you just help us reframe how we got to this third phase?
So we started with that identification process where you identify potential major donor givers based on your prospecting. Then you qualify them. During that pre-approach is where you try to find out everything you can about this potential donor, what their interest is, what their motivations are, what they value. The second phase of that is the cultivation phase. And that's where you actually approach the donors and start your need discovery. This is where you're asking open-ended questions. This is where you're trying to get to know them. What drives them to make gifts, where they've given to other organizations, why they've given, what moves them to make a gift to not only your cause, but any cause. This is where we discover everything about them. Now, the next and third part of that major gift fundraising cycle, but also included in the cause selling cycle, is where we do that solicitation.
Okay, so we've worked hard through these phases, and you mentioned something yesterday to Jarrett and I, which was really interesting to me, is that these don't all take the same time. They can move more quickly. They can move more slowly. You have to be judicious about understanding where you are in that relationship. It's kind of like dating, if you know what I mean. You go out the first date, you have to kind of figure out how things are going. It's been like 42 years since I've dated, but I'm just figuring this out, right? I mean, there's a process to the human relationship that we have with our donors, but we get down to this big part, and it almost seems to me, Jack, that the solicitation is that point with which you do that famous Terry Axelrod statement, bless and release. You work forward and you're going to move on with them, or you're not.
Right.
Is that really where we are at this point?
So the first part of that solicitation process is presentation. What we call in cause selling is giving them a presentation. Couple things about presentation. The first thing is face-to-face. You're dealing with a major donors, so we recommend face-to-face. Now, I know what you're going to ask me, Julia. You're going to say, how are you going to meet face-to-face with a potential donor during a pandemic?
Yeah.
So that's your question. Everybody asks that question when we present this part of it. So there are some techniques that are important in a Zoom video. And it's really funny because before we started recording, you were giving me some of those techniques. One of the techniques was, Jack, sit up straight. Jack, fix the back of your shirt. Jack, lean into the camera. All of those are true and good things for us to remember when we are doing a virtual presentation to a potential donor. There are other things too, that you would look at, and those are just some of the really important things. Look into the camera like you're looking into the eyes of the potential donor on the other side of that Zoom video. The second thing you do in presentation, which is so important, here's where you provide that potential donor with the essentials: your work, your mission, your vision, your values, how gifts advance your mission, and what are the benefits to that potential donor to make a gift to your organization. The other thing I say in presentation is practice. Practice your presentation. It's so important. And then finally, we say, what is your presentation style? Do you memorize your presentation? Do you ad-lib it? Is it from notes that you have, whether face-to-face or virtual? I like to give this example. I worked on a capital campaign during my career. We were going to ask for $1 million. We did a dress rehearsal the night before we asked for the $1 million.
Absolutely.
So it's really important to rehearse that presentation no matter what your style is. When we did the rehearsal, it was myself, a board member, and the CEO, and each of us had a role to play in that presentation. So it's really important.
That is a great insight, especially as you make it so relevant to current events. And one of the aspects of presentation that I have found challenging in my community, I live in Arizona, there's a lot of individuals that may leave town in the summer months, right? So we're really talking 4 or 5, maybe even 6 months. So I'm curious how you can digitally prepare more or less a resource folder. So let me go back. If I were to meet someone for coffee, I would gather additional resources that I would intuitively think that this individual might ask. Okay. And so I would say, well, I brought this, for you to take a look at. How do we provide that in this digital space now? I'm curious how you address that.
Great question.
It's a really important question, but I think the techniques of, first of all, during your needs discovery, think back to yesterday, during needs discovery, this is where, Jared, you're going to anticipate potential questions based upon your conversations with the donor. One of the questions might be that they may ask you is, will my gift have impact? And you can anticipate that based on the conversation you had with them during need discovery. They may ask things, it's really important for me, Jared, that when I make a gift to a nonprofit organization, I want to make sure that my gift is meaningful and has an impact, and is it changing something in our community? So anticipate all those questions so that when you're in the virtual environment or in the live environment, you already have an idea what this potential donor is going to be asking based upon your needs discovery.
And that's active listening, right? I feel like I'm
active listening.
I'm channeling a previous episode with Fundraising Academy talking about the cause selling education model and how this moves along. I love that, and literally, when it comes to that presentation, taking a look at how you show up on video, and some of those minor adjustments make a major impact. We've seen it here, Julia, throughout our episodes. And so I love that you brought that into the solicitation.
I do this all the time because I'm on video pretty much every day between
Yeah.
my work at the Fundraising Academy with you guys and other work that I do. So what I do is sometimes I schedule a Zoom meeting for myself and I just go on, I record it. I look at, how do I look? Am I too orange? Which I think I'm kind of orangey today. Is my head too shiny? What's
Yeah.
going on with this? And then I look at it and I critique myself. And then I tweak things, change things.
Okay, let me bump back to what Jarrett asked, because I can see you, Jarrett, sitting in a restaurant or someone's home with your resource folder, and you have all these data points, you have graphs, you have stories, whatever. I mean, is that, Jack, that you're saying that we should like PDF those and send those in advance, or do a share screen, or what's like the
No,
mechanics?
I wouldn't send it in advance.
Okay.
I think so. I think it's okay to look at your notes. I think when you're talking with a potential donor and you're saying, "Hey, if you explain to them, hey, Jared, I've written some notes based on our previous conversation, some questions to ask you, some things that I think are important and meaningful for our discussion." That's respectful.
Okay.
That's say you paid attention to her and what she said to you mattered and you remembered it. And now during the presentation, you want to address some of those things. Remember the whole relationship building model of cause selling. We build relationships by mutually respecting the people who we are about to solicit a gift from.
So, Jarrett, let me put you in the hot seat. Given what Jack has said, I know you're like, oh,
I'm scared. Okay, I'm ready. I can do this.
you can. For God's sakes, you're on with me every day. I know you can do this. What do you think about this? Like, what are you seeing with fund development folks reaching out across, Zoom? Or what is your take on this? Because we're not moving away from this anytime soon.
We're not moving away from it. So many more people have become very accustomed to it. And so even, mitigating that travel time, sitting in traffic or just going to meet for coffee 30 minutes away or what that might look like. So you might still live in the same geographic area, but still people are going to say, hey, I prefer a Zoom.
Yeah.
That's going to happen. And, I shared a little bit about my own family member, my brother, who works for a large university, and he has not only done this via face-to-face, but via a phone call. So I think we as professionals are becoming more and more accustomed, and it's really knowing the donor, right? It's knowing the donor and what he, she, or they are most comfortable, and to ask them, right? What is your preferred way of presentation, perhaps?
Yeah, absolutely. That's very donor centric, Jared. I asked them what matters. If they say, one of the things we talk about in cause selling is if they say, hey, yeah, I'll meet with you. Let's go to a restaurant. Let's have lunch. Let's have coffee. Picking the right space in a face-to-face meeting is so important. We think, oh, let's go to Starbucks or let's go here. And then you go there, let's go to this restaurant. And it's so loud. It's so noisy, or it's too quiet. I mean, so really understanding the space. Remember, this whole thing, you're about to ask someone to make a gift to your organization. It has to be in the right setting. And we talked quite a bit about that during this module presentation in cause selling.
Well, and let's move into those objections, because I do feel, right? So not only do we need to have the listening skills to identify and to be able to prepare for the questions, but I feel like we need to prepare for any objections that we might need to start developing a way to overcome.
Yes.
Tell us about that, Jack.
Yeah. So the first thing we love to say, one of the epic fails that fundraisers make is to fail to understand what objections are. Remember, objections are not a no. They're not the same as no. In fact, they're a sign of interest. Interest in our program. When people give us objections, they're telling us they want to know more. They're interested in what we're doing. They're not saying, no, I'm not going to give you a gift. They're saying, tell me more. Remember back to the pre-approach and the approach. And remember, Jarrett, you mentioned active listening. You may be able to anticipate objections you may encounter by actively listening during those previous stages of the cause selling cycle. And when they present an objection to you, that's great. Prepare your response. Get those responses written down based on what you're hearing them say during that need discovery, that pre-approach, the approach, etc. Remember, this is so important, guys. If you, donors will continue to object and resist until they get an answer to their objection. Mm-hmm. So don't just ignore it, address it, hit it head on. Some objections you're not going to be able to respond to because they may be so out there, but the majority of them, 90% of them, you are going to be able to anticipate and respond to them. That will help get you to that gift.
Okay, it really seems to me when I hear you say that, it seems like we're going all the way back to the very first point, and that is understanding their value and why they're investing with you.
Yeah,
so,
that's
right?
That's the beauty of the cause selling cycle. Yeah. It's a cycle that builds and grows and flourishes as you move through that cycle.
So can you give us some ideas before we move on to the ask? Like, what are some objections that you might encounter that are going to be, across your storied career, you've seen these come back? Any guidance there?
So, sometimes you'll hear what we call the stall. They'll say, well, we're not ready to make a decision. That might be an objection you hear. So, when I've encountered that in my career, I've always said, okay, when can I circle back to discuss this? Not where you just leave it and say, oh, okay, bye, see you later, nice knowing you. I'm glad we had coffee, see you. You usually have to come up with a response like, well, when can I circle back with you? It might be where they need to consult with someone else. So you might say, oh, well, and if you've done your approach and your need discovery, you would have discovered this and you would have invited that other person. But maybe you didn't see that. Maybe it wasn't anticipated. So you might say, okay, well, when can the three of us get together? Always what is that next step after you hear the objection? That's really key.
And I'm hearing, as you say this, make sure it's in your donor database. Make sure you create a task or a calendar initiative to remind you so you don't let that time go by and you
That's
drop
right.
the ball. There needs to be, continuous, contact here and to really keep that top of mind.
Yeah. How about the objection that you've asked them for way more than they thought they would give to you? You asked them for, I don't know, $100,000 and they were thinking more 50,000. What do? Is it over? Is that a no? Of course not. You might say, well, what gift level are you more comfortable with? Always anticipating what that objection would be so that you get to yes, you close the gift. So I think there are lots of things that we talk about. These are just a few of the objections you may encounter. And I think that, some of them are more, you'll see them more in your career than others.
Okay.
Jack, I'm smiling because when you say, perhaps you ask for 100 and they come back and say 50, that sounds great. And it seems like we're right in line for you to do 50 this year. And perhaps you'd consider another 50 next year.
Just as a little aside, I always say, if I ask Julia, give me $1,200, and she says, no, I can't give you $1,200. But if I say to her, hey, Julia, how about $100 a month for the next 12 months? That may be more palatable.
Love it. I love that.
I'm a big proponent of, if you ask for a big gift and they say, oh, I can't give you $12,000. I don't have $12,000. But how about $1,000 a month? Or how about, 3,000 over the next 3 years, or, whatever the math is there. So always, always, always have a response ready.
Right. I love it. And I also think too that it's the reality of cash flow and understanding, how you've navigated to the point where somebody believes in you and wants to invest in your organization, and they're searching for impact. It's a matter of what is the process of it, right?
How about, have you ever heard this objection, guys? Julia, I can't make that gift right now because my son is just starting Stanford University. I have a big tuition bill coming up. So what do you say? Well, when can we revisit this?
Right.
Let me come back to you in 6 months. Let's talk about where you are then. Not where you just ended, it's over. Okay, have fun at Stanford, but where you say, listen, this is not over. We still want to have this conversation with this prospective donor.
Okay, so we've really got to get to the ask, and this is where I personally love this piece.
Yeah,
but you have some things that are different.
One of the things that I love about the cost selling cycle, when we get to the ask, what we talk about is have a closing frame of mind to close the gift. Okay, so when you start that pre-approach, you are closing. From the very beginning of the cost selling cycle, we are starting that process of closing the gift. One of the things that I love to say about the beauty of the cost selling cycle is that when you get to the ask, you've done so much of your work in advance that you're going to close a gift. It's going to happen. So one of the second thing we look at, always have that closing frame of mind. And sometimes it will be very quick and you close immediately. And sometimes it may take a little bit more time. Some of the things you look for are body language, donation signals of body language, open, an open frame with you, leaning in. All of those things are clues that tell us this prospective donor is getting to the point of saying yes, or now's the time to make that gift. Remember, in the ask, to always summarize the benefits based on what you learned about their interests, vision, values, what motivates them, what you learned in discovery. Okay, so always summarize the benefits. Julia, if you make a gift to our homeless shelter, we are going to be able to house more people and take into some permanent housing. Always. The other thing we always say, directly ask for a gift.
Right.
I like to say this. I get this all the time. I see this in students and classes that I've taught. They say, won't you please support our organization? Let me tell you something. I support a lot of organizations, but I don't give them all money.
Right. Now, Jack, following that, would you say and identify, because we've been talking about major gifts for this week, would you say this is a major gift?
Yes.
I mean, you actually, along that, I agree with you. Support is, well, yeah, everybody can support you.
Yeah.
But will you invest with a major gift?
And
literally put it out there.
And that investment, asking them to make an investment in your organization by making a cash gift, and be specific as to the amount. I mean, you don't say, oh, can you, Julia, would you make a gift between 5,000 and 10,000? It's just not done that way. And some people do that. Actually, they do that. Ask directly for a gift. You're asking for them to join you and your organization in solving some community problem.
Right.
Well, and I love what you said yesterday, Jack, about, you are acknowledging this is a major gift, and we have identified X amount of individuals as part of this exclusive investment group.
Yes.
towards the mission. And I think all of that language is very important throughout the entire cycle, beginning, with the prospecting, certainly within the presentation, portion of the solicitation, and most definitely to reiterate that in your closing of the ask, right? That's the impact. We are so grateful for you joining this exclusive supporter group.
Right. And Jared, so many organizations create that exclusivity really well. Arts organizations, they say, you want to support our ballet company? At this level, you're in the Golden Slipper Club.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
At this letter, you're a choreographer club. And you know what? People say, oh, for $10,000, I could be in the choreography group. And I want to be in that group because here are the benefits to me of being in that group. And this is a way to move people to higher giving levels, by the way. So if I'm in the Golden Slippers Club and that's a $5,000 gift, and I say, oh, but for another $2,500, I could be in the director circle.
Right.
That's the exclusivity, Jared, you're talking about.
That's right. I love it. All of this has really been fantastic. Julia, I'm circling back to if only we had had this cause selling education and this model, 20 plus years ago, we would be so much better for it. But you know what? We have it now. And now we're able to use it, implement it, execute it. So grateful to you, Jack, for coming on and sharing this valuable insight and expertise with us. And of course, thank you for all you do in the sector and then also throughout your certified fundraising executive cohorts and the training that you provide professionals. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you guys for having me. I always love talking to the both of you. I learned so much from you guys too. I love your questions. I love the culture that you guys create on this show.
Good.
Beautiful culture.
Good. Thank you.
That means a lot. I was thinking, Jared, what you said about this time, and there's this, this old adage that says, when is the best time to plant a tree? And it's 30 years ago. But when is the second best time to plant a tree? And it's today.
Yep.
So, you've got to look at some of these things, and no matter how long you've been in the game, if you're new, maybe you're looking to move forward, now's the time. Get started and really perfect. Join us back tomorrow where we examine the stewardship of this and all of the things that we've talked about. That's going to be really a great discussion because it will pull a lot of this together. And make sure that some of these back issues or episodes you can find in the archive. If you want to get a viewing party together, maybe with your development team or yourself, or you want to refresh, this has been really great information because it is a strategy, and you'll know that a lot of the cause selling features dovetail to this major gift process, but it is a little different. And so that's why we really wanted to pull it out on its own and talk about it. And then again, Friday, we're going to be here be joined with Tony Bell, and it'll be amazing. Here's Jack's information. If you are thinking about joining the CFRE ranks, Jack might be someone to talk to about it because he's been an active part of it and is a national trainer. And so we want to also point that out because it's really, I think, some excellence in our profession. Again, I'm Julia Patrick. I've been joined by my intrepid co-host, the nonprofit nerd, my nonprofit nerd, your nonprofit nerd, Jarrett Ransom, CEO of the Raven Group. We are so delighted that all of our sponsors are here with us day in and day out, joining on this mission that we have. Jarrett, we're now in our third year, sister.
We are, as you say, we are a going Jessie, 400 and close to 75 episodes now with over 800, 800 total archive video elements. Still the only national broadcast providing service to the nonprofit sector. Jack, thank you for being a huge part of this, and especially your service of this week, and to Fundraising Academy and to all of our sponsors that keep this going and growing throughout our nation.
It's been amazing. It's been amazing. Every day we end this, our episodes with this mantra, and we truly believe it. Stay well so you can do well. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you back here tomorrow.